Adams, why don't you take questions from the press? Why don't you take questions from the press?
Y'all liars.
What are we lying about exactly?
They don't want him to be Republican friendly.
That we are in this position because President Trump, who pardoned people that were videotaped physically assaulting people on January 6th.
What? Mayor Adams in court trying to get his case finally dismissed. Trump's acting deputy attorney general, Emil Bove, showed up in there by himself and took care of business because the judge called him in there. And even Mayor Adams knows what a joke this whole scene was. He was there. The media was screaming at him, "Why aren't you asking questions?" And here's what he said in response.
Mayor Adams, why don't you take questions from the press? Why don't you take questions from the press?
Y'all liars.
What are we lying about exactly?
Yeah, what are we lying about exactly?
Because you're all liars in the press. The press is filled with liars. We have no love for Mayor Adams, but of course, we have no love for the media. So this is Chad Mizell. This is the chief of staff for Pam Bondi. And Chad posted this today about the Mayor Adams case because Emil Bove, Trump's DOJ, got ordered in there by a cranky federal judge to kind of explain yourself. And Emil Bove did that today, as we'll see. But here's what Chad says. For too long, the DOJ has lost its way. True. Prosecutorial misconduct and political agendas will no longer be tolerated. The case against Mayor Adams was just one in a long history of past DOJ actions that represent grave errors of judgment, saying the DOJ, it's going back to the basics, tells us prosecuting the mayor of America's largest city raises pretty unique concerns. I want to focus on one aspect though, the legal theories underpinning the former prosecutor's case, the Southern District of New York, and particularly the expansive reading of the public corruption laws that they use, telling us to win a bribery conviction against a public official, the DOJ must show some official act in exchange for benefit. It's a quid pro quo. We know what that word means. Now, what is the official act in the indictment that's alleged? Well, the main event took place before Adams was even a mayor. And we read through this indictment and we're like, what is this? If Adams is guilty of what they alleged here, every politician is. They all get free upgrades and crap. In September, when Adams was a candidate, a person associated with Turkish government allegedly asked Adams to help ensure the swift opening of a consulate in New York. So here's a key question. How do these facts, as alleged in the indictment, go up against case law? Here's a history lesson. Every time the DOJ has pursued extensive theories of public corruption, the department has been rebuked by the Supreme Court every time. Put simply, the track record of public corruption cases at the Supreme Court is abysmal. In 2024, the DOJ lost 6-3 in Snyder versus US, where SCOTUS overturned the conviction of an Indiana mayor who was convicted of federal bribery in connection with supposedly illegal gratuities. The court rejected the DOJ's theory, saying that accepting gratuities constituted a quid pro quo. Now, the year before, in 2023, the DOJ also unanimously lost 2 cases in SCOTUS, both brought by the SDNY. Same thing in Simonelli. The Supreme Court unanimously tossed the wire fraud conviction in connection with Andrew Cuomo's Buffalo Billion Initiative, saying the DOJ's theory of criminal liability was invalid. Then there's Kelly in 2020, unanimously overturning Bridgegate. Now, before then, SCOTUS unanimously repudiated Governor Bob McDonnell's conviction. Same thing in Skilling. And finally, when they prosecuted Ted Stevens, the DOJ ended up having to dismiss the indictment even after obtaining a conviction because prosecutors egregiously failed to disclose the case. Now, clearly, this history and case law underscores the legal risks associated with prosecuting Adams. The DOJ could win a bribery conviction only if they show some official exchange. The alleged official act in Adams' case, however, took place before he was mayor, and one of the main benefits was campaign contributions. But all successful politicians get campaign contributions. And so in the Adams case, the SDNY was rolling the dice, and given the DOJ's abysmal history of losing at SCOTUS, the odds were against the DOJ. Even when the district judge said at a recent hearing there was some force to Adams's challenges to the government central theory. Now, the government must tread particularly carefully before classifying these as crimes. Additionally, the amount of resources it takes is incredible. Thousands of man-hours. Those resources could be better used for prosecuting gang members in New York. And so given the history, the DOJ had to decide, among other issues, whether to keep going down a road that leads to losses at the Supreme Court. Says no, dismissing the prosecution was absolutely the right call. So the DOJ submitted their motion to dismiss in New York. The Mayor Adams case begins today with reporting from Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee reporting. We're in Southern District of New York. Emil Bove has already submitted via his office a motion to dismiss the case. Judge Ho ordered everybody in there, said, I'm not going to dismiss this until I hear what you have to say. We're seated in court. The session begins. All rise. Please be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, says the judge, we're here today. The case of United States versus Mayor Adams on a motion to dismiss the case. Appearances, please. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Emil Bove for the United States government. President Trump here. Good morning, Your Honor. Alex Spiro for Mayor Adams. Judge says, thank you for coming in on such a short notice. You know, on February 14th, the government from Trump filed a motion to dismiss the charges without prejudice. Without prejudice, meaning this case can come back later. Now, I have a few questions, but the judge says, I want to proceed carefully on this, okay? I need your assistance, says the judge. This is an unusual situation, and here's why. Now, let's bring the motion to dismiss up on the screen. And Emil, I want to ask you about this, about paragraph 2, about this written consent. All right, now, Mayor Adams, I have to ask you a few questions. This is Alex Spiro, right? They're on the same team. So Alex Spiro is working for Adams, but he wants the case dismissed just like the government does. The judge is the only thing holding this up. So Adams' attorney says, I write on behalf of Mayor Eric Adams here. Mayor Eric Adams agrees to the dismissal of prejudice of the charges against him and that he's not a prevailing party under the Hyde Amendment in the above referenced case. Sincerely, Alex Spiro, sent in to Emil Bove. Emil Bove submitted the motion to dismiss to the court, and the judge is now saying, you can't do that. So the judge says, I have to ask you these questions under oath. Is that okay? Of course, Your Honor. Yeah, my client has no issue with that at all. Mayor Adams, would you please stand, raise your right hand? Sure. Mayor Adams, you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, no but truth, oh God? Yes, I do, Your Honor. Now, what is your name? Says the clerk. Eric Leroy Adams. I'm the mayor. Mr. Adams, have you been under the care of a doctor or psychiatrist in the last 48 hours? No. Have you seen any doctors in any way that would interfere with what you're doing here today? No, I have not. Have you been hospitalized for addiction? No, I have not. Have you had any drugs or alcohol in the last 2 days? No, I have not. All right, this court finds that you have a clear mind and you're here presently and accounted for, the judge says. Now, and by the way, that's just normal kind of standard stuff, right? They ask that basically anytime you do a change of plea, just to make sure you're not high and you're there of your own free mind. The judge says, all right, now I want to go back to the government's motion. Now, Mr. Spiro, Adams' attorney, can you share it with Mr. Adams? I mean, Mayor Adams. Mayor Adams, have you seen this? Yes. Did you see it before you agreed to it? No, I didn't. Actually, it was explained to me. Mr. Bove, DOJ, it is right that the mayor has consented to a dismissal without prejudice. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Can these charges be brought again if this dismissal is granted? Well, they could be, Your Honor. It would be in the department's discretion because it's just a motion to dismiss without prejudice, so we could bring it back. Are there any time limits to when you could bring this? Emil says, well, it's off the cuff, Your Honor, but, you know, there's the statute of limitations, so a certain amount of time expires. That would be one. There's also speedy trial considerations. So, you know, I'd have to talk to the department's criminal division, but they could take a look at it. That would be over at Main Justice. Is that right? Yes, Your Honor. In this motion, we don't speak to a confirmed U.S. attorney. So it's going over to Main Justice. That's correct. At my office. All right. Mayor Adams, you recognize here that if I dismiss this case, that they could prosecute you again for another crime? You understand? Yes, Your Honor. I understand that. But I have not committed a crime. So I don't see them bringing it back, and I'm just not afraid of that. Well, you better consult with your attorney. Adams says, I failed my law class. Laughs. Everyone's looking around like, all right. Judge says, well, normally you have the right to a speedy trial. Now, you understand that if this motion were withdrawn or denied, that they would have 70 days to bring you to trial. Do you understand that? Yes, I do, Your Honor. Now, are there any other agreements here beyond what's before me? No, Your Honor, says Mayor Adams. All right, well, I'm going to review the transcripts to make sure I've asked all the questions. This judge is just sitting there. Note to Governor Hochul, it does not appear that Judge Hull will be ruling today. It says, Mr. Bove, does the government have any other reasons for this motion? Well, I do, Your Honor, but we're not asking the government to rely on anything beyond this. Well, what are the bases of this motion? Why am I dismissing this anyways? Your Honor, prosecutorial discretion. We don't think it's a wise case, and this is against the weaponization of the law. So that's why. And paragraph 6 also implicates presidential power. It's unreviewable in this courtroom. So there's nothing you can do to stop this. The prosecution impedes immigration enforcement, and so the presidential power is also coming into play. Now, are you focused on appearance of impropriety, Emil? Well, Your Honor, the department is investigating that. I'm not, but I'm here to answer your questions today. There's a reference in the motion to interference in the 2025 mayoral election because Damian Williams created a campaign website where he's prosecuting everybody. He's like, I prosecuted Diddy, I prosecuted Weinstein, which I don't think he did. You know, he's got like a whole list of people. I prosecuted the mayor. Bove says, well, that he has to be here is interference, okay? He can't be out there campaigning. So like they're interfering in it right now. So are you. The judge says, okay, relax. Now in paragraph 6, the ability to govern rationale. You said that also it impedes his ability to govern the city. It refers to denial of access to info. Well, yeah, Your Honor. He does not have the security clearance now that he did before. Adams' attorney, Spiro. Did he have security clearance before, Mr. Spiro? Yes, Your Honor, he did. He was part of the joint task force, and now he can't interact with those who brought this case, which is the DOJ. But did the case make him lose his clearance? Attorney says, well, he's not getting info about terrorist threats, so it's cut off. Emil says, I don't concede that the security clearance is tied to this motion, but it is a matter of executive power. Okay, well, if I dismiss this case, how fast could his security clearance be restored, says the judge. Bove says, I don't know. Has this rationale been invoked before, like in a decision to dismiss an indictment? Has anybody brought up dismissing a criminal case so that they can get security back? Because that seems seems kind of weird. He's like, have we seen that before? Bove says, I'm not aware of such a case, but there are other cases where the SDNY has invoked national security, like the Victor Boot case and U.S. versus Gouveia. So yeah, there are national security interests, and we dismiss cases all the time. Joe Biden did it with Victor Boot to get Grenier back, judge says. Could this apply to the governor of a border state, for example? Like you could say governor, like somebody could do something bad, but you keep them? Yes, says Emil. Yes, that's right. The other rationale, says the judge, is it would apply to a candidate that is not a public official. So now the judge is like trying to pin them down in their policy. Well, this is case specific, Your Honor. It doesn't apply to all candidates. This one's pretty specific. So it's not a general rule for the DOJ, but we're doing it here for Adams. Judge says, well, the trial was set to begin 2 months before the primary election. Emil says that. Judge, they were trying to do basically what they did to Trump with him. Set the trial right before the election, the primaries. Judge says, yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Bove. Now, Mr. Spiro, Adams' attorney. I want to ask about documents. Says, sure. Well, first, the security clearance was revoked because of the indictment. I was there, says Adams' attorney, so I saw it happen. Okay, thank you for that. Judge says, let me ask you about your submissions. You submitted electronic court filing 130.1. You're responding to requests to put in an amicus brief, and you also said this one. This is a question for Mr. Bove from your February 10th memo. Mr. Bove? Well, I sent it to Miss Sassoon, the woman who, retired or resigned / was fired. Says, I object to the amicus brief, so I don't think that brief should come in here at all. Judge says, well, may I consider your February 10th memo? No, Your Honor. No, that's not relevant to here. I'm an officer of the court. I am here in good faith. That's the end of the inquiry. You can ask me questions about anything you want here, but you're not using my memos. You're not using anything else that was sent. I'm here. I have the right to dismiss this case. What's your question? I'm entitled to a presumption about that. There's a presumption of regularity, Your Honor, so you don't get to go look at my memos and all of my internal work product. That's none of your business. Consider the Armstrong case. The amicus briefs are just speculating. They don't know anything about what I did. And by the way, the president himself is subject to a dismissal without prejudice in the District of Columbia. So this can happen. Judge cuts him off. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Spiro, Adams' lawyer. At ECF, you offered sworn declarations. What were those? Well, I had to submit those. When someone says false things often enough, I have to say something, which is why we submitted those declarations to refute those allegations, Judge says. On the Speedy Trial Act, this might be moot very soon. Emil says, if the court grants the motion, it closes the case. It vacates all orders. So there's no speedy trial considerations about rushing things through. And the Adams lawyer says, and no appellate court has upheld a district court's denial of an unopposed motion to dismiss under Rule 48. So in other words, Judge, you can't not dismiss this case. It's going to be dismissed. The judge says, well, adversarial testing of a position can be of a benefit. They're like, Judge, why are we even here? Come on. No, you can't do anything. He says, well, sometimes it's good to talk it out, but that may not be needed here. But I'd like to hear you on this. Emil says, Your Honor, you have created a clear record today. You put Mayor Adams under oath. There's no quid pro quo. Even if there was, it'd be fine still, but there wasn't. But even if there was, we could do this. You can't stop us. We're the prosecutors, so good luck. Bove says, the former U.S. attorneys, by the way, it was authored by Carrie Dunn and Mark Pomerantz, two, in my opinion, prosecutor hacks who created the whole Alvin Bragg case to launch it against Trump. And remember, Mark Pomerantz was that whiny baby, guy's like 70-something years old, throws a hysterical hissy fit because of TDS. He's got TDS on the brain. And when Alvin Bragg said he wasn't going to prosecute, he wrote a book about it, wrote a screed in the New York Times, and then had to walk all that back because Biden sent over Matthew Colangelo from the DOJ to reinvigorate the prosecution. They're hacks. Says they initiate it. It comes from a position of bias and it should not be accepted. And Spiro, Adams' attorney, says non-parties are fraught with peril, Judge. Don't listen to any of these other people who are submitting briefs. That letter, the letter that leaked, had false information about the mayor. We are being actively harmed by this ongoing process. There's no reason to carry this on here. Every instance of this harms democracy. The judge says, well, it's in no one's interest for this to drag on, but I'm not going to shoot from the hip right here on the bench. I'm going to consider everything. Thank you for coming. What about the sealed documents? And so Inner City Press reporting on that. Now, Al Sharpton came out. There's a big battle happening there. Is Adams going to be fired by Kathy Hochul? Here is a little bit of what Sharpton sounded like when he was out.
Concerned about what is going on in the city and the state. Let's make no mistake about it, that we are in this position because President Trump, who pardoned people that were videotaped physically assaulting people January 6th.
What? We're in this position because of the J6 pardons? This is Mayor Adams and his alleged criminality. They're nuts. All right, so here's this other dude, and he's explaining that there's a lot more to this story. George at Bahizi tweets, great follow on X, shared this clip with us today from this dude who is a Democrat New York City council member who is explaining why there's this giant screeching to oust Adams.
What do you think about everything that's going on?
Yeah, but the alleged conduct of Mayor Adams, what's the alleged conduct? He met with Tom Homan. That's the conduct. That's what they don't like. He wants to cooperate with the president of the United States, Donald Trump. That's what the Democrats don't like. And I'm a Democrat, but I see it plain as day here. When Tom Homan appeared with Eric Adams, Mayor Adams, on Fox and Friends, it hit the fan.
They don't want him to be Republican friendly. Okay, so they're not even upset about Mayor Adams. If he was a good Democrat, he could do whatever he wants. Look what they covered up for Hunter Biden and the Biden crime family. You're a Democrat, you can be like Reid Hoffman and go hang out with Jeffrey Epstein. They don't care. They'll encourage you and even take your money. But if you're Adams and you're like, we might have a little bit too many illegal aliens in our state, Democrats lose it, hit the fan, and the rest is going from there. So we'll keep our eye on this one. We'll see what the judge does. I think he's got no choice but to dismiss the Mayor Adams case. We'll be here when he does.